There are tales older than empires, older than kings, older even than memory itself. Tales that burn in fire and whisper in shadow. Among them, none is more haunting than the prophecy of Azor Ahai, the hero who was said to rise when darkness covered the world. His name carries both hope and despair, for his story is not one of glory alone, but of sacrifice, blood, and tragedy. The legend speaks of a warrior who forged a sword like no other, a blade of living flame, strong enough to end the long night. Yet its power came at a terrible cost, a price that even the greatest among men and gods would hesitate to pay. In the world of ice and fire, people called him the prince that was promised. They looked for his return when the stars bled, when the cold threatened to consume all. But who was Azor Ahai? Was he a savior chosen by fate, or simply a warning that no light can exist without darkness? Tonight, we will uncover the truth. The tale of the sword Lightbringer. Long before the fall of thrones and crowns, there came a darkness that nearly ended the world. The long night. An endless winter when the sun itself seemed to vanish and snow covered the lands for a generation. Crops withered, cities fell silent, and the dead began to walk. Legends say that this was the age when the others first came, cold beings from the farthest reaches of the north who brought with them armies of shadows and ice. Men who faced them spoke of eyes burning blue and blades that froze steel at a single touch. Against such terror, even the strongest warriors of men were powerless. Yet the stories also tell of a single hope, a hero born among the people of the East who stood against the tide of darkness. His name was Azor Ahai. Unlike other men, he carried within him a destiny that none could escape. The fate of the world rested on his shoulders. It was in this age of despair that he sought to forge a weapon that could bring light back into the world. A sword of fire, a blade that could shatter the cold and drive back the shadows. This weapon would become known as Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. But as we will see, the forging of that blade was no simple act of craft. It was a tale of failure, of sacrifice, and of a love that was turned into legend. Azor Ahai knew that no ordinary sword could turn back the long night. He sought to craft a weapon not of steel alone, but of fire itself. For 30 days and 30 nights, he labored, folding steel and summoning the strength of flame. When the sword was finished, he plunged it into water to temper the blade. The steel cracked and shattered. His work was ruined. He began again, this time working for 50 days and nights. He quenched the glowing steel in the body of a great lion, hoping the strength of the beast would bind the weapon. The sword broke once more, lifeless and brittle. The world was sinking into despair, and time was running out. Azor Ahai turned to a final and desperate choice. He forged again for 100 days and 100 nights, pouring every fragment of his will into the steel. When the blade glowed with living fire, he called for his beloved wife, Nissa Nissa. He told her of the destiny that lay before him and of the sacrifice that must be made. She bared her chest without fear, for she loved him more than her own life. With a heavy heart, he drove the blade through her heart. Her cry of agony poured her soul, her courage, and her love into the steel. The sword did not break. It blazed with fire. Thus was born Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. A weapon said to burn with the heat of the sun. A sword that carried not only power, but the memory of the woman who gave her life to complete it. From that day onward, the tale of Nissa Nissa was bound to the legend of Azor Ahai. Light and fire were forged not from victory, but from sorrow. In the heart of every flame there was sacrifice, and in every triumph the echo of loss. The story of Azor Ahai did not end with the forging of Lightbringer. His tale became prophecy, carried across generations like an ember that never fades. It was said that when darkness once more threatened the world, Azor Ahai would be reborn to fight it again. The words of the prophecy are both beautiful and terrifying. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt, and he shall wake dragons out of stone. These lines were repeated in temples and whispered in shadows, yet no one agreed on their meaning. What is the red star that bleeds? Was it a comet streaking across the sky, or a sign in the heavens not yet seen? What is meant by smoke and salt? Does it speak of birth in the heat of fire and the tears of mourning, or something even more mysterious? Those who followed the fire, God believed the prophecy marked the coming of a savior who would wield Lightbringer once again. Others doubted, claiming that prophecy is a riddle designed to twist the hearts of men. Still, the hope endured. In every age of turmoil, when the world seemed on the edge of ruin, people looked for signs. They searched for the warrior who would stand against the cold and shadow, the one who could bring light to the darkness. But prophecies are not simple roadmaps. They are mirrors, reflecting what we most fear and what we most desire. And in the case of Azor Ahai, the prophecy would come to shape kings and queens, priests and warriors, driving them to believe they were chosen, even when the truth remained uncertain. Through the centuries, many claimed the mantle of Azor Ahai, reborn. Kings, queens, priests, and warriors each sought to fulfill the words of the prophecy. Yet the truth remained elusive, and with every candidate came both hope and doubt. When the War of the Five Kings tore Westeros apart, many eyes turned to Stannis Baratheon. He carried a grim resolve, and by his side stood Melisandre, the Red Priestess who believed beyond all doubt that Stannis was the chosen one. She declared him the prince that was promised, the savior destined to wield Lightbringer. Stannis even drew a flaming sword from the fire, but it was only smoke and illusion. His victories never came, and his end proved as mortal as any other man. Others looked north, to the Wall. There stood Jon Snow, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who gave his life in defense of his brothers and was returned from death. His rebirth led many to whisper his name alongside the prophecy. Jon fit many of the signs, born of both salt and smoke, carrying the weight of leadership and fighting against the cold itself. Yet he never claimed the title of Azor Ahai, and the flames gave no clear answer. And then there was Daenerys Targaryen, born in the midst of a great storm at Dragonstone, raised in exile, and surrounded by fire and salt since the day of her birth. She brought forth dragons from stone eggs, a miracle that seemed to fulfill the words of the prophecy more clearly than any other. To her followers, she was the living proof that Azor Ahai had returned. To her enemies, she was a conqueror who brought not salvation, but fire and blood. Each candidate held a fragment of the prophecy, but none were its perfect image. Perhaps that is the true curse of prophecy. It promises certainty, yet delivers only riddles. Stannis, Jon, Daenerys, each carried the hopes of those who believed. Each showed signs that seemed undeniable. Yet in the end, none could claim the title without question. In the end, the prophecy gave no final answer. The truth of Azor Ahai remained hidden, veiled in fire and shadow. Stannis fell. Jon lived, but never claimed the destiny thrust upon him. Daenerys rose in flame and ash, yet her end was not the salvation foretold. This silence is not a failure of the tale. It is its essence. Prophecy is not meant to comfort. It is meant to unsettle. It tempts us to search for certainty where none exists. It whispers that we are chosen, even as it reminds us that fate may be nothing more than the stories we tell ourselves. Perhaps Azor Ahai was never meant to return as one figure at all. Perhaps he was a symbol, a reflection of every soul who stood against darkness, willing to pay the price for light. In this view, Jon, Daenerys, and even Stannis carried fragments of the prophecy, each embodying a piece of the hero that the world longed for. Or perhaps the true hero has not yet come. Perhaps the world of ice and fire still waits for the red star to bleed, still waits for the day when the shadows rise once more. If so, then Azor Ahai is not just a story of the past, but a warning for the future. What remains certain is this: the tale endures because it is incomplete, and in every incomplete story lies power, the power of possibility. The question is left open, and it is in that open space that legends live forever. From the forges of fire to the halls of prophecy, the story of Azor Ahai lingers like smoke after flame. He was said to be the warrior who would save the world from eternal night. Yet his legend is not one of triumph alone, but of sacrifice and sorrow. Lightbringer was born not from victory, but from the cry of Nissa Nissa. Hope was written in blood, and even the brightest fire left shadows behind. Across the ages, kings and queens, knights and prophets searched for his return. They claimed to see his signs in the stars, in the smoke of battle, and in the tears of the living. Some believed the prophecy was fulfilled. Others insisted it had yet to come. In truth, the story endures because it cannot be closed. This is the heart of Azor Ahai. He is not simply a savior to be revealed, but a question that never stops echoing. A reminder that every age carries its own darkness, and that every light must be paid for. Perhaps one day, the prince that was promised will rise again. Perhaps he already has. Until then, his tale remains one of the greatest mysteries of the world of ice and fire. If you have enjoyed uncovering this legend, step with me again into the shadows of forgotten lore. Subscribe and join me for the next journey